It was supposed to end with the final whistle. The match was over. Argentina had won. Egypt were going home. The result was on the scoreboard, 3-2 to the reigning world champions, and football was supposed to move on to its next chapter. Except Egypt had other ideas. Because 24 hours after the most painful result in their football history, the Egyptian Football Association did something that very few nations have ever done at a FIFA World Cup. They filed a formal, documented, legally framed complaint. Not against the result, not against Argentina, against the referee, against the VAR crew, against every single official who had stood inside Atlanta Stadium on the 7th of July and made decisions that Egypt's federation described in language so direct it removed all possibility of misunderstanding. Several key incidents raised serious concerns and left profound questions about the consistency and fairness of decisions that directly influenced the course of the game. And then came the demand that stopped FIFA in its tracks. Egypt were asking for the referee and his entire crew to be removed from the remainder of the tournament pending investigation. This is where the 2026 World Cup reached territory it had never visited before. This is the story of the official complaint that gave FIFA its worst nightmare, and what the response from football's governing body reveals about who is really in control. On Wednesday, the 8th of July, EFA President Hani Abu Rida put his name to a document and submitted it to FIFA headquarters. The complaint named French referee François Letexier specifically. It named his assistants. It named the VAR officials. And it laid out with the kind of forensic clarity that only comes from a federation that has spent hours reviewing footage, time-stamping incidents, and constructing an argument designed to withstand scrutiny, exactly what Egypt believed had gone wrong. The complaint identified 3 specific moments, 3 incidents where Egypt's federation argued that the application of VAR had been so inconsistent, so partial, and so damaging to the outcome of the match that the integrity of the result itself could not be allowed to stand unexamined. The first was the disallowed goal, Mustafa Zico's finish in the 58th minute, which would have given Egypt a 2-0 lead against the world champions. The VAR review that followed identified a foul committed by Marwan Attia on Lisandro Martinez in the build-up, a foul that took place several phases of play before the goal was scored. The complaint pointed to the fact that Attia had pulled Martinez's shirt while simultaneously accidentally stamping on the defender's foot. That this action, in a different phase of play, on a different part of the pitch, 20 seconds before the goal arrived, was sufficient to erase what would have been the defining moment of Egypt's greatest ever match. Former England goalkeeper Rob Green, speaking on Fox's live broadcast as the review was happening in real time, was unambiguous. Surely, he said, this is not within VAR's realm to review this. Former Premier League leading scorer Alan Shearer was equally pointed in his assessment, delivered publicly on social media in the hours after the match. Either both are fouls or neither is, he wrote, but they told us they won't re-referee. Former Liverpool defender Jamie Carragher also questioned the consistency of VAR's application. When the voices of 3 respected, experienced former professionals who have no connection to Egypt and no stake in the result all arrive at the same question independently, that question cannot be dismissed as the partisan response of a disappointed nation. The second incident cited in the complaint was the moment in the final minutes when Hamdi Fati went to ground in the Argentina penalty area after what appeared to be shirt-pulling by Alexis McAllister. VAR reviewed. VAR found no reason to intervene. The penalty was not given. The third was Mohamed Salah tumbling in the box after a collision with Julian Alvarez. Again, VAR reviewed. Again, no intervention. Again, no penalty. And within seconds of those reviews concluding, Argentina broke upfield and Enzo Fernandez powered home the winner from Lautaro Martinez's cross in the 93rd minute.
3 moments, 3 VAR reviews that found nothing for Egypt, and a 20-second-old foul that found something significant enough to erase a goal. All in the same match. All involving the same officials. All producing outcomes that fell in the same direction.
Egypt's complaint did not use the word conspiracy. It was too carefully constructed for that. But what it said was clear enough, that the absence of the word changed nothing in terms of what was being implied. Defending the rights and interests of the Egyptian national team, the EFA statement read, is not a matter that can be ignored, minimized, or treated as secondary. It is a responsibility that we carry with full conviction and determination. And then came the sentence that made every football official reading it deeply uncomfortable. The association affirms its commitment to defending the rights of the national team and ensuring the principles of fair play and equal treatment for all teams. Equal treatment. 2 words that in the context of this complaint carried an implication that FIFA could not have found easy to absorb. FIFA's response arrived, and it came not in the form of an investigation announcement, not in the form of a press conference addressing Egypt-specific concerns, not in the form of any engagement with the individual incidents named in the complaint. It came in the form of a statement from Pierluigi Collina, FIFA's chief refereeing officer, the most senior official responsible for the standard of refereeing at this tournament. Nobody can question the integrity of the FIFA World Cup match officials, Collina said. Match officials make honest decisions, and just like players and coaches, they always try to do their best. When this happens, it may provoke reactions that lead to threats against them and their families. This is not right. Read that again. Egypt had filed a formal complaint citing specific named incidents with timestamps and footage references. They had asked for an investigation. They had requested the removal of the officiating crew. They had named the referee. They had named the VAR officials. And FIFA's response was to say that questioning referees leads to threats. The Egyptian Football Association cannot have been surprised that the response was defensive, but the nature of that defense, which addressed none of the specific incidents cited in the complaint and instead pivoted immediately to the welfare of the officials, struck many observers as a response that answered a different question to the one that had been asked. Former England referee chief Keith Hackett attempted to provide technical context, arguing that the suggestions of a rigged game were ridiculous and that the decisions, while uncomfortable, were within the laws of the game. FIFA shared the same stance publicly. But the Egypt complaint was not arguing that the laws were broken. It was arguing that the laws were applied inconsistently, that the standard used to review Egypt's disallowed goal was not the same standard applied when reviewing the challenges on Fatih and Salah, that a technology introduced to bring consistency had produced its precise opposite in this match. That argument, unlike accusations of deliberate rigging, is considerably more difficult to dismiss with a statement about referee welfare. And there is a detail buried in this story that has received far less attention than it deserves. This is not the first time a team has formally challenged Argentina's involvement in this tournament with FIFA. Algeria had filed their own complaint after their opening group stage match against Argentina. They alleged that officials had failed to punish Messi for appearing to stamp on defender Issa Mondi, and that other decisions had gone against them in moments of significance. 2 complaints, 2 separate nations, both involving Argentina, both in the same tournament, both formally submitted to the same governing body. And FIFA's public response to each has been, in its essential character, identical. A statement from Collina, an assertion of referee integrity, no specific engagement with the incidents named.
The pattern that creates is one that FIFA, regardless of the actual merits of either complaint, needs to address with considerably more transparency than it has shown so far. Because football's credibility at its highest level does not rest solely on the quality of the football. It rests on the belief of the people watching and playing that the competition is governed fairly, that the rules applied to one team are the same rules applied to every other team, that the technology introduced to improve consistency is used consistently, and that when a nation raises specific, documented concerns about whether those standards were met, the institution responsible for those standards engages with those concerns honestly, rather than deflecting them with statements that address a question nobody asked. There is also a dimension to this story that Egypt complaint has brought into uncomfortable focus. France's players, ahead of their quarterfinal against Morocco, publicly dismissed concerns raised about the fact that all 5 of the appointed officials for that match were Argentine nationals. The players said they were not concerned, but the fact that the question was being asked at all, in the same tournament where Egypt had formally complained about decisions involving Argentina, says something about the atmosphere that now surrounds refereeing at this World Cup. FIFA has acknowledged receipt of Egypt's complaint. That is the extent of what has been confirmed publicly. Whether the investigation requested by the EFA will take place, whether any action will follow, and whether the officiating crew named in the complaint will continue to work at the tournament are questions to which no public answers have yet been given. And that silence, 24 hours after a formal complaint was submitted by a national association to the sports governing body during an active World Cup, is its own statement, the most powerful statement FIFA has made about this situation. Not the Kalina press release, not the talk of refereeing integrity, the silence. Mustafa Ziko, the young Egyptian forward at the center of the disallowed goal controversy, gave the football world the words it will remember longest from this entire episode, delivered not in a press room, but with the raw emotion of a man who had watched his country's greatest moment be taken away in real time. He is throwing away the hard work of an entire nation, Zico said of the referee. From the start of the match, he was coming at us, like it is unacceptable for us to be beating Argentina 2-0. Then came the 3 words that ricocheted around the world within minutes. The tournament is rigged. Whether those words are literally true is a question that evidence does not support and that responsible journalism cannot endorse. But why a young player who led his country to the greatest result in their history, who scored a goal that was taken away for a foul 20 seconds earlier on the other side of the pitch, arrived at those 3 words in that moment, in front of the cameras, in the full knowledge of what he was saying and who would hear it, is a question that deserves a more serious answer than FIFA has provided. The 2026 World Cup continues. Argentina face Australia in the quarterfinals. The football will be watched by hundreds of millions of people. The goals will be celebrated. The drama will unfold. But in the background of every remaining match, in every VAR review and every debated decision, the complaint that Egypt filed on the 8th of July will be present. A document, a demand, a nation's assertion that it was treated differently and that the world should know it. FIFA called it unfounded. Egypt called it their responsibility. The football world is watching to see whose version of events this tournament ultimately confirms. And somewhere inside FIFA headquarters, in whatever room houses the people who must decide what to do with a formal complaint naming a World Cup referee and his entire crew, the nightmare Egypt delivered on Wednesday morning has not yet been resolved. It may not be resolved before the final whistle of this tournament, and that, perhaps more than anything else that has happened off the pitch in North America this summer, is the most uncomfortable truth the 2026 World Cup has produced.